So very happy to have everyone here for Print Innovations with the Advertising Production Club, our second installment of it. I think that it's been very exciting to see people from the industry embrace what we're trying to do and kind of this educational networking initiatives that the APC is pushing for in the new age. And we're so happy that we can have sponsors and participants such as Mohawk and Lindenmeyer that are bringing so much still to the market in terms of innovation and education about their product. And for those who have received kits, I think that that's incredible that they're going to be able to touch and feel what we're so lucky to have be discussed today, which is so amazing by LaTascha and Sarah, and to see it in real life. And while we'd all like to be together, I think it's great that we can create somewhat of the same experience in our own homes. And I thank you guys for being so amazing with that and really creating something special for us and for the amazing people who are a part of our club. With that, I would like to hand it over to Tom from Lindenmeyer, Tom Riley, who I know has a few words to say, and then we'll kick it back off here.
Thanks, Jordan. First, I'll say that we're really thrilled to sponsor this series. The kickoff event a few weeks ago went really well. I hope that those of you who were involved enjoyed it. Today, you're in for a real treat. Very different types of papers than the last presentation from Mohawk Fine Papers this time. But just to give you a little overview of what Lindenmeyer Monroe does relative to Mohawk and your businesses. We're a paper distributor and have been since 1859. Contrary to popular belief, I did not start with the company then. I've been there for a long time, but it hasn't been that long. We have had a really long and friendly relationship with the folks from Mohawk. And even prior to that, back to the time when the Strathmore and Beckett papers that you may remember were their own individual mills and then became part of the Mohawk family. So our relationship goes back many, many years and at many different levels within both of our organizations. Very simply, what we do is we stock and market and distribute all of the papers that they make. So when you're looking to place your first order for Renewal, which is very exciting, and I'm sure something that you're going to hear about today, we would be the guys who bring it to you. We're part of Central National Gottesman as our parent company, their North American distribution, which also consists of Spicers and Kelly papers in the West, Olmsted Kirk in Texas, and Spicer's paper in Canada, as well as a couple of packaging companies in some new segments that we're recently involved in. So enjoy what Mohawk has to show you today, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next time.
Thank you so much, Tom, for jumping in and for that. And of course, again, being so informative. And with that, I know we're very much looking forward to hearing Sarah and LaTascha. I believe it's Delivering Impact with Print in 2020. That is the title of their presentation. I wanted to make sure I got it right. And I've seen a little preview. It looks amazing. And I'll kick it over to them.
Thank you. Thanks, Jordan. All right. So I just wanted to, first of all, say thanks to the APC for inviting us to do this webinar in the first place. Such a great organization that I've been privileged to work with for the past few years, always working to connect the community. And in this crazy world that we're living in today, I think it's more important than ever that organizations like that exist, whether it be for networking or education like this, or fundraising for scholarships. They just do a great job of keeping us all connected and engaged. And so thanks again for having us today. And thank you very much, Tom, for the kind words that you said as well. We love Lindenmeyer. You do an excellent job distributing paper and representing us in the market. So thanks to you too. So I'm Sarah Vassallo. I obviously work for Mohawk. I've been here for about 7 years, but I've been in the paper industry for about 16 years. Working on the paper mill side, from coated to opaque to now beautiful text and cover papers with Mohawk. My roles have changed over the years, but these days I call on the creative community, whether that be brand owners or designers, and seeking to educate them and inspire them to create beautiful print.
Hello, I'm LaTascha Foster. I've been with Mohawk for 2 years. I've been working in the New York metro market for quite a while, having experience on both the paper and the print side. On the paper mill side of the business, having experience both with coated and uncoated paper. And also on the call today, she won't be visible, but I do want to give a shout out to Beth Reardon, our East Sales Director. She helps us, Sarah and I, navigate the world behind the scenes, helps us keep the customer service at the focus, and always keeps the smile on our faces. So just a shout out to Beth Reardon, who's listening in today.
You know, since this is actually taking the place of the APC Print Innovations show that was scheduled for Earth Day, we definitely wanted to include some components that focus on our sustainability story, which is why we featured in this photo Mohawk Renewal, our brand new line that we launched on Earth Day that was supposed to be at the Print Innovation show. But, you know, some of you guys have already seen that, even maybe several times. We've been touting the stories, you know, for a few months now. And so we wanted to do something a little different with our time today. So what's in store for you is, first, we're going to talk a little bit about who Mohawk is, chat a little bit about our world that we're living in today, and talk about, you know, delivering impact with Print 2020, which is the title that Jordan got perfect. Thank you. And then moving into specifically attributes of direct mail and how that can be used effectively. And then we'll talk a little bit about what papers Mohawk has to offer to you. And we will absolutely tell you a little about Renewal as well. We don't want to leave you waiting for that. And then we will close with a few thoughts. And at the end, we will get to any of the questions that you've asked throughout, you know, the presentation through the chat or the Q&A feature. Just a little bit about who Mohawk is. We are a fourth generation family owned business based out of upstate New York, just out or in the capital region, just outside of Albany. We do employ about 300 people in the state of New York. So we consider ourselves the home team. So you can feel good about when you specify and use Mohawk paper that you are contributing to our local economy, you're buying local. Which also helps you because it gets here, you know, next day from just up the Hudson River. So it makes it a reliable point to get paper from. Our focus is really uncoated text and cover papers. And just to give you a little flavor about who we are, I thought I'd share with you the 4 pillars of our business. So in the images that you'll see here on the top left is, that represents heritage and innovation. So that's a picture from back in the 1930s when our mill started, which was in 1931, just to represent how long we've been making paper and working to perfect the paper making process at our mill. And, you know, print has changed significantly over the past 90 years. And so where innovation comes in is combining our history of paper making with innovations to make sure that our paper is suitable for all the different platforms that you might be printing on now, and digital and inkjet, and, you know, but also not forgetting letterpress and offset, you know, where it originally started. So heritage and innovation together. The second image on the top is representing mastery of materials. And so we source all the finest pulps for our papers. This image here is actually cotton fiber that we've recovered from the textile manufacturing industry, which is part of our Renewal line, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, what exactly that is. But it's mastering the use of those materials in order to create paper products that are going to, you know, not only be beautiful, but also perform well on press. The third image down there on the bottom left is representing pride in the details. So you can see Gavin Gaynor, our lead of our research and development group, inspecting this reel of paper at the end of the paper machine. You know, we want to make sure that we look over every detail so that when you order a carton of Mohawk, every sheet in that carton is what you signed up for, what you thought you're getting when you're buying Mohawk quality. And then on the bottom right, this represents the pillar of community. Much like the APC, we try and pull together the community, whether that's connecting, you know, different designers with other designers to bounce ideas off one another, or educating people through something like this that are from all parts of the distribution chain, or connecting, you know, people like Tom with, you know, printers and end users for them to be able to get paper. We definitely strive to make those connections within the community. Kind of going outside of Mohawk into, you know, the greater world and what's going on today in our crazy world that we're living in. right now we are constantly in front of screens, right? Right now we're in front of a screen, and you're probably looking at your phone intermittently also. And so because marketers know that's what we're doing all the time these days, that's where they're sending our messages: to email. They're giving us messages on social. They're giving us messages on the web, and they should be, because that's where we are. But having said that, we've gotten really good at sort of mindlessly filtering out these messages, because we don't have enough time to look at all of them, or enough, I know myself, I don't have enough brain power at the end of the day to look at all of them. So what's non-essential, I'm very easily, in like a millisecond, able to filter out. And so digital almost becomes kind of disposable as saturation increases. And so what we find to be the case with this is that there becomes more and more of a place for print to be part of the picture, because print is something that takes you offline for a moment, which is a refreshing change of pace. And not to say that digital falls by the wayside and is not important, it absolutely is. But we see it as being used best in conjunction with something like print to get the message out there in several different ways. So just to take a little closer look at, why print then? There's a couple really interesting facts from an article from GD USA that we'll go ahead and put the link to in the notes for you to be able to take a look yourself if you'd like. But so why print? Well, print is hard to ignore. Print is something that's physical. I mean, it's in front of you. You'd have to actually pick it up and move it out of your way. If it's a piece of direct mail, you'd have to at least walk it over to the recycle bin to get rid of it. So essentially, it buys you that moment in time, at least a moment in time. It depends on whether your print is done well, what it looks like, what it says, how long that moment is. But it's been found that the average piece of advertising mail actually lives in a household for 17 days. Now, I challenge anyone to tell me if they have an email that they've saved for 17 days that they ever got back to and did anything with. I mean, maybe you have, but it's unlikely, right? Even if you lose that piece of print in your house for 17 days, you at least are going to stumble upon it physically and be reminded of it again. It's not going to get lost forever. So it definitely buys you a moment, and perhaps a very long moment. It also shows effort, stability, and respect. If you're spending the time to design, the money to produce, the money to mail, if you're doing direct mail, to do something, and if you're doing it well, it could really flatter the audience that's receiving it, because you've really taken time and put some thought and money into this printed piece. And what is triggered there is this idea of social reciprocity. And what that means is when somebody does something nice for you, you typically will want to do something nice back for them. So if someone has spent all this time and money to get a hold of you, typically someone's at least going to want to do something nice, in response, if it's done well anyway. So that's the idea of social reciprocity. Also, print is tangible, which is going to be memorable. You can see it, you can feel it. You can hear the paper, crinkling, or you can hear the envelope opening. If you really love print, you can smell it, like probably many of the people on this webinar would do. So as your senses get engaged, it triggers and activates your memory. And so in a study, it found that only 44% of people can recall a message, recall a brand immediately after seeing a digital ad, whereas 75% of people could recall it after receiving a piece of direct mail. That's a pretty important statistic there. And furthermore, people trust what they can see and feel. So it was found that 56% of customers trust print marketing more than any other type. Next point being, print creates ownership. There's a really cool video that we will also post the link for in the notes, in the chat, and it is featuring Dr. David Eagleman. He's a neuroscientist, and it talks about this concept called the endowment effect. And the idea is that you place more value on something that already belongs to you. And he does a really great job of explaining it to you. I won't play it now for the interest of time, but I encourage you to watch it. That effect is so powerful that you don't even need to actually own something for it to be triggered. You can actually trigger it by just touching something. So think about a catalog and a product in a catalog, that you want to get in front of a client. As they interact with that piece tactily, if the endowment effect is triggered, then they place a higher value and already a sense of ownership on this item, hopefully driving them to want to perhaps go online and order that product and hopefully pay, a decent price point because they do perceive it at a higher value. Now that we've talked a little bit about why we should be printing and what it can do for you, LaTascha is going to talk to us about that relative to the world that we're living in today.
Every one of us is going through this whole pandemic thing. We're all trying to figure out where we are, what our place in the world. We're trying to basically reset our relationship with nature. How do we communicate with each other as human beings? We've all been relegated to these little boxes, talking heads, and living our lives on Zooms or team meetings. But print can satisfy the need for that direct contact. How do we as humans make connections with other humans? Print is touched, it's felt, it's loved, especially by the paper geeks that are on this line today. We've all experienced digital problems where we've had all these recent power outages due to Isaias and storms that are passing through most of us right now. I recently went to dinner at a restaurant and the menu was supposed to be available on a QR code, but the restaurant had such bad cell service in the area that they ended up having to go into the back and find us good old-fashioned paper menus. It was a lovely time, but in order to make that connection, we have to have a way to make that connection. And we're not robots. Sometimes we need something printed. And if your internet is unstable, how would you do that? With no power, how would you do that? So we have to create that nostalgia. We think direct mail is the way to go. Direct mail recipients purchase 28% more than non-recipients of a printed piece, and not just any type of direct mail. If your inboxes are full now and mailboxes are empty, we have to be sure that what we send is impactful. So how do we reach those people we can't see in person? Direct mail again. So what we do has to do really well because we need to reflect what's inside. When we use our hands to pick up and open an envelope, it creates an instance in our memory. And unlike digital correspondence, it creates a tangible artifact we hold on to. A direct mail piece or something that you put in the hands of your clients is your brand story in real form. It's your brand story in their hands. It's basically the handshake hello. And your handshake should always be firm, strong, and you look them in the eye. That's what we're doing, and we're suggesting you do with a well-presented printed piece. Don't forget, look them in the eye. It's your first impression. We can't leave this to chance, and we suggest that you also consider these 4 attributes: color, texture, style, and size. We're gonna break those down just for clarity. Let's start with color. So here, when we think about a direct mail piece, you may have automatically gone to the simple number 10 envelope that you do get those in your mailbox. Those are bills and statements that you don't really want to have to deal with. They're plain, lightweight, limp, the opposite of the firm handshake we just spoke about. So if you think about that, let's take color and make it different. If you see the imagery that we have here on the slide, that is a slide from our Mohawk Maker Quarterly number 15, and that piece in particular is number 8 in the quarterly. It comes in a separate piece like this. Those of you who got the packet already received this. This inside, there's a great study from a German sculptor who went around the world and saw buildings, regular red brick, white brick buildings, and instead of leaving them the way they were, he created a fill of Lego bricks and added a pop of color just in random places. So as you're walking along a tunnel, you're walking along a street in New York City, to see this playful addition to a strong, sturdy building gives you a moment of surprise. Your color options affect the communication through the interplay of imagery and texture. Color piques the curiosity of what's inside. You didn't just walk by that building, you stopped, you noticed, and you paid attention. And that's what you want to do with your direct mail piece. The other thing that adds is texture. Texture amplifies your message. It captures your audience attention through touch. As fingers move across a textured surface, it sparks their senses and their interest is focused on your content. It helps your piece stand out in a crowd, much like color. At Mohawk, Sarah already mentioned that we make fine uncoated paper. When you think about the emotions that texture invoke, you think about an uncoated, kind of has a more of an authentic, a homey, a naturalness feel comes to mind. The cotton and eggshell gives you something a little bit more luxurious, a little bit more upscale. And felt, of course, just a warmth and the hominess of that nostalgia that was already talked about. Our Mohawk digital print set, the digital piece that was also in your kit, shows you what can be done with vellum and felt that we made the cover. Inside the via vellum picks up even more of the feeling of what's inside and the messaging because of the warmth of the texture created. And we want to be sure that you're always taking a look at all those options. The next attribute is size. And of course, I said it, you heard me, size matters. When you take a look at what size does, you can come up with all different options. Oversized envelopes have a higher response rate than anything else, up to 5%, according to the Data and Marketing Association. And if you consider an unusual job size, you get even more of an impact. Our Mohawk Maker number 10, which looks like this, is called Beauty. Inside, there is a series of posters that we have the images there. Each poster unfolds for surprise after surprise of which can be done with a large sheet, the folio sheet used to your advantage to keep unveiling your message time and time again. Size also lets you get creative in your space. If you take a look over my shoulder, we are all looking over shoulders now while we're in this Zoom and bubble head world here, and you can see, you know, of course, my swatch books and different posters and pieces that I've gathered over the years that not only speak to my personality, they speak to my occupation and my interests. And just like you, I love touching, feeling, and handling the paper and the printed products. So while maintaining the effectiveness of all the other attributes, you can also find yourself looking for ways to adjust your budget. We know that. Consider the size of the job. So on this slide here, I mean, without going into detail, this is all going to be available to you later. But if you take a printed piece, 9x12, standard, 32-pound cover on the pieces here, if you change the size from the 9x12, 8.5x11, 8x10, all the way down by 6x9, you can actually see the savings. And that's, of course, assuming that everything else remains the same. Read the fine print, use the scale, pay attention, have a dummy made. We, with the help of merchants like Tom Riley, we're happy to send you paper to make dummies so that you can flush that whole thing out and make us a part of the process. So, and final, not at least at all, is style, because I talked about, again, what we have in our background and how we try to affect change with what we're trying, with our message. You create interest with your style. As it relates to direct mail, style can be the style of an envelope or the exterior of a self-mailer. The point is to create interest and intrigue, drive people back to whatever your product or your idea is. In this new world, a piece like the one shown here is especially thought-provoking, since community is specifically as it relates to place has been completely transformed. In the image, this is our Mohawk Maker Quarterly number 16, where you see die cuts, the belly band goes vertical instead of horizontal. There are 3 individual books here, and that's the die cut that you can see there on the edge. It's called community, and in this community, we know that that becomes a place, a voice, and the time we put them all together And the point is that the whole is greater than the sum of its part. So the materials highlighted on all of these slides are available on our Mohawk Connects website. We'll add that to the notes later. And we just want to be sure that you remember that as we're all adapting to the new normal, that all of the unique parts of what we do, all the attributes that we've landed here, create a style and they help amp up your messaging.
Great. So hopefully you guys have the gears turning on print projects that you have in the works, or maybe are inspired to do a brand new print project as a result of everything we're talking about, or have at least some ideas. So a great place to start is by thinking about the paper. That's really going to be the carrier of your message. And so I wanted to share with you just a little bit about each of Mohawk's paper grades so you know perhaps which swatch book to go to for whatever project it is, hopefully, that you're thinking about right now. So starting with Superfine, that's our flagship grade. We've been making that since the 1940s. It has evolved and hopefully we've perfected it at this point, or continue to work toward that anyway, for all the different platforms for printing. It's available, you know, for offset, digital, pretty much anything really that you can think of, letterpress, any of the specialty processes. It really, to me, sets the bar for white uncoated printing paper. So if you have a job that really matters, my recommendation, you know, if you need white paper anyway, is to at first at least try and go to Superfine. Next is Options. Options is really cool. It's a very unique paper. There's a surface treatment done to it that actually allows those ink dots to sit up on top of the paper rather than absorbing into the paper, giving you excellent ink holdout. So Inkswell gives you ink holdout. So essentially it would perform more like a coated sheet, but it still gives you the tactile feel of an uncoated paper. Also in this line, you can find a 100% recycled white paper. It's a very clean sheet. So sometimes people will go to it just because they know that that's what's required for the job that they're working on. Carnival and Via live in the same swatch book. It's that big orange one on the right in the picture. And Carnival Via offer a ton of different choices between colors and textures. I think there's more textures in this line than any of our other lines, as well as white papers. And the other feature of Via specifically is that it's our most economical grade. So if you know that budget is a huge factor, which, I mean, when is budget not a factor at all? But if you know that it's a very pressing factor, Via is a great solution for you. Also, we just recently expanded the Carnival and Via line and added some new basis weights, some new sizes, specifically for HP Indigo, stocked with iTone. So, you know, LaTascha shared with you the digital print set. Any of you that actually have that in hand, those 120 cover prints that are inside are printed on part of this expansion of that line. Strathmore has been around forever, since the 1800s. It offers beautiful, luxurious color and texture. There's also a whole section of this book dedicated specifically to identity papers. So if you're coming up with letterheads and envelopes and cards for somebody in a design identity suite, this is a great place to go. You have 25% and 100% cotton options in this line as well, which leads to the next line, which is Crane, which is all 100% pure cotton. We recently expanded this line as well. So we have 4 brand new colors in the line, as well as papers that are now stocked with iTone for HP Indigo printing. So check that out. Great for identity papers or letterpress or anything you just need to feel luxe. Loop, we call that our responsible paper. And the reason we say that is because everything environmental under one roof, essentially. So you've got high recycled content here, anywhere from a minimum of 30% post-consumer waste that allows you to print that recycle bug, all the way up to 100% post-consumer waste, and everything in between. All of our papers have wind power credits actually associated with them, but you know, Loop does as well. So if that's important to you, you can get that from any Mohawk paper. And in Loop, you can also find carbon neutral papers. So that's pretty cool if that's an area of focus for you or your client. Renewal, our brand new paper. I will get to that in a second. So I'm just going to not go into that in detail right now. We'll be back to that in a minute. Skytone. So if you need parchment paper for whatever reason, you want to get super creative with it and print the Declaration of Independence, do a reprint of it in like a green parchment paper, you can find that in Skytone. So that's what lives in that book. And then Key Color and Curious Collection. Those are two papers that Mohawk does not make ourselves, but we do stock and distribute in the United States. Those are made by a partner company of ours called Arjo Wiggins, and they offer beautiful, rich colors and incredible textures that are incredibly unique and will be sure to get any printed piece that you do noticed. Renewal. So like I said, some of you may have heard all about Renewal, so I'm not going to get too in depth. I'm going to tease the idea of Renewal today. So if any of you have not already heard the whole story behind how we arrived upon, this new grade line, and want to hear more about it or any of the specs or any of that, I encourage you to contact myself or LaTascha to set up some time for a one-on-one presentation or something, even with your creative team or whoever, so that you can hear more about it. But essentially what it is, just at a high level, is Mohawk wanted to take our sustainability story, to the next level, really write the next chapter in that book. And so we decided to look at sustainable materials from a different perspective. We looked toward alternative fibers, so alternative fibers to wood. And we came up with 3 different alternative fibers that are pictured here: hemp, straw, and 100% recycled cotton. And I'm going to give you a little fun fact about each of the segments. But like I said, we want to be able to share this in more depth. And in the interest of time, we can't do that here. So please reach out to us if you'd like to know more. Our contact information is in the chat. So hemp. It is a very quickly growing plant, maturing in as little as 90 days. So that's much faster than a tree would grow. So it's a great alternative fiber that's quickly renewable. Also, turning hemp into pulp requires less chemicals, less water, and less energy than wood fiber does. Straw. Straw is actually the waste product when wheat is harvested. And so when these farmers harvest their wheat, this is left over and they have to get rid of it in order to prepare their fields for the next year's growing season. So they can do that in a couple different ways. One of which would be to do a fall burn, in which they set, the field on fire. And this inherently causes a couple problems. Fire is going to create smoke. So this big black cloud of smoke goes into the environment and it's releasing carbon emissions into the air. The other thing, especially recently, that we found, that we've always known, is that fire is very difficult to control. And, once you set this huge fire, who's to say that that's not going to get out of hand? So preventing that by happening, by using this for paper, is a great way to do that. The other way that you could get rid of the straw would be to till it under, but that causes soil erosion, and that's not great, for farming either. So, by us being able to use this, not only does it give us a great, fiber that for pulp that would have otherwise just been waste, but it also helps us to reinfuse, money into the farming industry. So that helps them as well. And then 100% recycled cotton. What you're looking at here, and what you saw on the slide earlier, at the very beginning when I was talking about mastery of materials, is recovered cotton scraps from the textile manufacturing industry. So these are scraps from making t-shirts and denim blue jeans that we are recovering and diverting from going into landfills in order to be able to make beautiful paper. And our 100% recycled cotton part of our renewal line. So again, we'd love to talk with you more about that. Reach out if you want to hear more. Which leads me to, it's a great segue for this next slide. So, we seek to educate and inspire you. And so we'd love for you to reach out to us to request more materials. Some of you got, the kit that has some of these materials in it. There are other materials that we didn't include in the kit because we didn't know if it would be redundant with what you already had. I mentioned that there was an expansion of the Carnival and Via lines, as well as Crane. You can reach out to us for those new swatch books. A lot of the content from the direct mail segment of the presentation comes from our Maker's Field Guide to Envelopes. So we'd be happy to send one of those your way. So whether it's for education, inspiration, paper samples like LaTascha mentioned earlier for, projects that you're working on, just let us know what you need. We're here to help. We can make paper recommendations as well. So can Tom. We work together in doing that, and we would love nothing more than to hear from you. So just to kind of sum it all up, we're living in this crazy digital world right now. Is anything but normal, bombarded with all these digital messages, and print is a great way to be able to cut through that clutter. And Mohawk offers a variety of different papers that you can use to make beautiful, impactful, relevant, and memorable print that we would love to talk with you about further and learn more about the projects that you're working on. So here again is our contact information, which we'll also put in the chat. Before I forget, I want to again thank the APC for allowing us to do this webinar, and thank you all for your time in attending it. And now we can answer any questions, I guess, that are out there.
All right, sounds good. And we'll provide information. If there's any questions, you can always reach out to the APC directly, and we'll connect you with Sarah and LaTascha. I think we had one question from Edith. In the Renewal line, is it a combination of the three materials?
No, it is not. There are three parts of the line. The part that's with hemp has 30% hemp fiber. And depending on the shade, it either has the balance of it be 70% FSC virgin pulp, or if it's not the clean white shade and it's one of the other two, it's 30% hemp along with 30% post-consumer waste tree fiber, paper fiber, as well as virgin FSC fiber for the hemp line. The straw is 30% straw along with 70% virgin fiber, virgin FSC fiber, and then the 100% cotton, that's 100% cotton. So there are three different parts of the line composed of the three different fibers. There's also a question about the stats. We can send that out as well. All of them are sourced. They're in our notes, but we'll send out those as well so that you can see them.
I believe there was one more in regards to what details are available in the maker guide to envelopes.
All kinds of fun stuff. LaTascha, would you like to speak to that one?
Yeah, it's a whole kit that takes you from this, again, the size, the style, the textures, the color, and it breaks it down as it pertains to an envelope and how to best fit that with your outgoing package.
Great. Well, if
It's a whole study. It's a whole book of it. It's fantastic. We'd love to share that if anyone wants it in particular.
Sounds great. Well, I thank you guys so much for that presentation. It was amazing. Personally loved the beginning really with why print and kind of just your approach to saying how it lives so much longer. I think the email analogy really kind of sums it up, that you don't keep an email for as long as you really keep something of print, and someone who's in the print industry specifically. I think that it really spoke to the impact that a printed asset brings. So really enjoyed that. I want to thank LaTascha and Sarah for their time again. We have a running schedule of events that we'll be keeping everyone updated on through the website, through all of our other social media channels. We have a meetup scheduled for the 27th, information to follow. And we really look forward to keeping in touch with everyone here and hopefully keeping the conversation moving forward. Thank you all again, Tom, as well, and the sponsorship and the partnership of Mohawk and Lindenmeyer, again, is invaluable to the APC, and we can't thank you both enough for the support there. So keep in touch, and everyone stay safe, healthy, and have a wonderful remainder of your week.